welcome Sarah Brazier as she joins us all the way from New York City.
Thanks for having me.
So Sarah, she comes from New York. She works at a phenomenal, fast-growing company called Gong, right? I think you mentioned you guys have over 1,000 employees now at this point.
I think we do. Don't quote me on it. I'll look on LinkedIn later. That's how I keep track of how fast our company's growing.
And what is Gong for those who haven't heard about it?
Yeah, so Gong is we're a reality platform. That's our current catchphrase. But what we do is we unlock reality to help people and companies reach their full potential. That's what our COO came up with. And I say it on all my first call meetings. But essentially, like, if you think about the way people make business decisions today, it's really challenging because you guys are all selling remotely. You're all having conversations with customers, and you understand, your business really well. But how that translates to the overall business can be very, very challenging to understand at scale, especially as a company grows. So a lot of times someone like Brandon is looking at CRM notes and having one-on-one conversations and taking all those things into account when you come up with the go-to-market strategy. But those things are biased, they're incomplete, they're outdated, they're everyone's opinion. So we capture calls and conversations that take place over web conferencing or email, and we analyze them and we start showing you conversational trends about what's going on in your market. So what are your customers really saying? Or what is it that the top performers are doing? How do they talk to their customers? And how can you start to replicate that across your team? Or if you think about pipeline, like what are the behaviors that allow you to win more deals? Or what's actually hurting you that you didn't know about? And that's what Gong does in a large nutshell.
Absolutely. Very good. So she's been killing it there, right? And making it happen. And so we kind of want to just talk to her to understand how she stays consistent, right? And consistently performs.
I think that I was a person who wore a lot of hats and opened a lot of doors and kind of like sampled everything at the buffet. That's sort of how I approached my career. I never knew what I wanted to be when I graduated from university. I got a degree in broadcast journalism, and I haven't ever really used it. You haven't seen me on the news. And I knew I didn't actually want to be a reporter by the time I'd graduated. But I did know that I really liked talking to people, and I liked learning, and I liked to teach, and I wanted something that was, hands-on. And the other thing that I knew I wanted is I wanted to do something that I felt like I was making a difference in other people's lives. So I joined a nonprofit, and the nonprofit was the National Speech and Debate Association. I did speech and debate all through high school and college. And I think there's like two things that have changed my life. The first one was deciding to do speech and debate, and the second one was deciding to do sales. And speech and debate took me on a really amazing journey where I worked for this National Speech and Debate Association. I coached speech and debate at high schools, and I thought, oh, that's fun, but I think I want to go be an actor in LA. So I moved to LA for like 2 months, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Right now I'm living on my sister's couch talking to her chihuahua every day. So I went and I got a job in Texas, in San Antonio, working at a private school called St. Mary's Hall, and I taught drama and speech and debate to middle schoolers. And I think that was sort of like my first taste of sales, the cruelty, the rejection, the no's, the constant trying to get people to do what you want and them just running around screaming instead. I think that's where I really learned like the importance of setting an agenda. You would be surprised how that changes a middle schooler's attitude. And after I finished that year, I thought, man, I think I have less money now than when I was an actor in LA on the couch. So I think I'll just, if I'm going to be poor, I might as well try to be an actor again. But this time I'll go to San Francisco because I had a brother who lived there, and he had a much nicer couch. He had a whole futon I could sleep on. And so I lived in the Bay Area, and I coached after-school speech and debate down in Fremont. I took acting gigs that took me out to Sacramento a couple times. I was a barista, and I worked the front desk of an office. And a little bit before that, I also was like a bookkeeper at a church. But I did all of those jobs. And while I was acting, I was doing things like I took this internship where the requirement was that you work 6 days a week, and you only have 1 hour break, and you work until they tell you you're done. So I would clock my hours, and I'd be like, wow, I worked a 17-hour a day today, and I got paid $100 a week.
Wow. God.
And, there are things like shoveling up dead rats and throwing them in the trash bin and washing people's clothes and painting stages. And I was like, man, I think this is indentured servitude is what this actually is. I don't know if I want to do that. So that was like a tick in the box of like, maybe acting's not right for me if this is what it is. So I went and I left that internship and I went back, and that's when I started being a barista and commuting down to Fremont. So, San Francisco's over here. That's where I was living. I would drive over to Walnut Creek, which is over here. It's like an hour drive, and I'd go open the coffee shop at 5:30 in the morning. I'd take a nap in the parking lot, and I'd drive down to Fremont down here to go teach classes until 9 p.m., and then I'd drive back, and that was sort of my cycle. And I thought, that's really hard. Maybe I should get my office job. So I took this office job at a company called Optimizely. And that's when I started talking to salespeople, because they were the nicest, and they walked past my desk all the time. And I'm like a little lab puppy, like, "Can you talk to me?" This guy named Jim Jones was coming by. And that time I was working like 90 hours a week. I was doing a show, and I worked 7 days a week because I was in rehearsal. And I would barista in the morning and then go to Optimizely. And then afterwards I'd go to rehearsal at night. And, Jim would come by, and I would say, "Can you tell me about sales? Like, you're in enablement. What does that even mean?" And so he told me about sales enablement and how he got to sales. And I said, "I think I can do that." And I also thought, like, if I could do that, maybe I wouldn't have to work 90 hours a week. And he said, "Sure, I'll tell you about it." And he gave me a book, To Sell is Human by Dan Pink.
Yeah.
And I read it all. I told him I read it. And he's like, "Okay, let's get you to start applying for some SDR jobs." And that was how I walked into sales. He introduced me to an SDR. She recommended me. And then I got the job like 2 weeks later. And I said, "Sayonara." And then I became a salesperson.
Very cool. What a great background. Awesome. Let's kind of pivot to, let's fast forward a little bit to you being in the role that you're in, right? And talk about some wins and losses, right? So what would you say your biggest career win as a salesperson has been so far?
I think it's yet to come.
Oh, okay.
I think it might close this month.
Very cool. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah.
Got a negotiation call later today.
Okay.
So
Very good.
I'll be in the hallway being like, "Oh, yeah,
Sign it.
no, we can't do that. No, we have price integrity. Sign it."
Right on.
But truthfully, I don't know if like my biggest win career-wise has been like a deal I closed, like in a dollars and cents kind of way. I think it's really just been getting to the point where I can competently be an account executive.
Yeah. Accounts? Yeah.
Yeah, that I think is my biggest
Yeah.
my biggest win.
Because you went from SDR and very quickly were promoted. I think a lot of people take, or they don't know how to pivot to that role,
Yeah.
right? And then there's companies that don't help people go down that direction of actually closing their own deals.
Yeah.
They want to just keep SDRs being SDRs.
Well, that was actually my experience at the first company I worked at. Is I was an SDR and I was terrible. Like I could go like whole months without booking a single meeting, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong because I would make the 100 dials or the 80 dials that I was required to, and I would get people on the phone, but I couldn't get them to talk to me or to take another call with me. I didn't understand like the methodology behind what is the point of a cold call, other than to beg someone, "Please, my account executive really wants to talk to you." And I also didn't have a lot of support from management at that company. So I would say, "Hey, like, I don't get it. I'm doing all the things. Like, what am I doing wrong?" And my manager at the time told me, "Sarah, sales it's art, and it's science. And maybe you're just not cut out for sales. And I was like, first of all, I am an actor. Don't tell me that this is art. I do highbrow things. I was a bird in a play once, and it was. So that really annoyed me. But he still couldn't tell me what the formula was. He didn't know. So I spent 9 months at that company really struggling. And then I transitioned over to Gong, and I think the key differentiator was that there was somebody who cared about my success, and that was my manager, Tanner. And he very much wanted to make sure that I was empowered to be good at my job, that I understood the pains and challenges of my prospects, sort of like this empathy thing that you guys have been talking about a lot. I think that's like the key to good sales. That's the key. That's what Dan Pink says in his book, To Sell is Human. It's like, that's like the number one thing. Everything is a transaction. Everything is a conversation. Everything is a sale. And selling isn't this sort of like money grabbing thing where you're like, I want to really get rich. But it's really about helping other people out and understanding how you can help them and if you can help them. And he taught me how to take that concept and apply it to a cold email, and take that concept and apply it to a cold call. And once that clicked for me, then everything else started to fall into place. So I went from an SDR at my last job who was at 0% quota to exceeding my ramp target to making President's Club in my first year as an SDR. And then I wish I had gotten promoted to be an account executive right away, but I interviewed and I failed. And that was like devastating. I snot cried in the office. I really tried not to, but someone said, "Oh, you're not an AE yet?" And I was like, "No!" And the problem was that I was really good at prospecting, but I didn't know how to take that and transfer it into a conversation, a discovery call. And so I spent a lot of time working with another manager who took me under their wing and helped me understand what I needed to do. So that was the beginning of I think to have a process, you first have to break it down into bite-sized pieces. I call it you Ford motor your day, you Ford motor your sales cycle, you Ford motor anything. It's what is the thing that can be the gesture, the repeatable thing? You're talking about working on the assembly line. Yeah. And that I think is sales, and you just get really, really good at one part of the motion. And once you can put that piece together really quickly, that 90 seconds, then you can move down the assembly line and move to the next thing. And before each one of those, you have to have somebody who shows you how. Or you have to find someone, you have to find a way to learn how to do it. And that I think is the first key. So I think you guys are all super lucky because Brandon is so invested in you. And you can tell just by the way he talked to everyone at dinner and the way he starts these conversations is that you're at a really, really good company where you're going to have someone take your hand and say, this part goes here, and maybe don't do that like that.
Very true.
Absolutely. What is a loss that you're okay to share with us and talk about that you experienced?
Yeah. I think there's one big deal I lost, and losing, not getting promoted those were both two really challenging things from the sales perspective. I think both of them came because I didn't ask for help, and I should have asked for help earlier, even if I didn't know what I needed help with. I think that was my problem. I was like, no, this makes sense. I think I got it. I get it. It makes sense. I can do that. And then I actually went to do it, and I was like, everything's on fire. So I was working probably one of the largest deals I could have ever closed ever. And it was a competitive deal, and we were running a pilot. And every mistake you could have made in the pilot were just things that I didn't think through or ask about. I did. I committed all the mistakes. And by the time I brought leadership in to help me out and try to smooth things over, the deal was clearly we were not going to win it, and we could have and we should have, but we didn't, and that's my fault.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and those are great examples to just learn from, right? We experience those things. There's a saying that it's inevitable you will lose, right? Have you guys heard that? and if we're not losing, we're not learning anything or learning what we should learn. And so definitely things that we need to keep in mind, right, as we're growing, as we're trying to better ourselves. So very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about motivation. These guys are probably tired of hearing the word over the last few days, but I stand on a soapbox on this subject. But what were some things you did to find consistent success? It could be as an SDR, now that you promoted. Mm-hmm. What are some things that you kind of do to kind of set yourself up so that every month you're hitting your target or coming where you want to get to from a target standpoint?
Yeah. So I think there's that's really important to have goals, and then within that smaller goals, and then within that even like these micro goals. And on top of that, you need to develop some kind of way to discipline yourself in order to act on it. Because there are plenty of mornings where I wake up and I'm like, I really hope everybody cancels on me. Because I just don't want to do it. But I have to do it because it's my job. So I think that motivation is something that is like, it can be fickle. So for the times when it's hard to get out of bed or you're working remote and you really miss that in-person connection, and so it's just not as exciting to get on the Zoom call, I think those moments, which I've had so many times throughout COVID, there has to be a process in place to get you there. So what Gong does at the beginning of every fiscal year is we sit down and we come up with what our goals are. And they can be personal or they can be professional. But we write them down and we have a conversation about it. So my goal this year was that I wanted to make President's Club. I wanted to overwhelmingly 100% make President's Club. So that was my big goal for the year. And I have other goals that are, 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. I don't really know what I want to be when I grow up, but I know ideas about things that I think would be fun to do. So I'm trying to open doors that will help me figure out what that path should be. But year-wise, I have, this is my goal for 2021. I wanted to make President's Club. And in order to get there, I needed to hit 150% of quota in order to auto-qualify. And so then I have to go do the math and figure out how much revenue do I have to close. And then quarterly, what does that mean? And monthly, what does that mean? And then I have to look at what's in my pipeline and, figure out, okay, how much can I do that now versus later? And then, every morning it's a question of what are the things that have to be done in order to be successful? So especially in an SDR position, I did this all the time. Sandler Selling has it in its book. But he's basically got this roadmap of hey, what's your goal? What are the tangible things you can do to hit it, like revenue producing activities? Because there's a lot of times you can wake up in the morning and be really busy and feel like you worked, but you actually didn't do anything. And there will be no revenue from those actions. So it's what are the revenue producing activities you can do? And I track what I did, and I see if I hit that goal. And then if it results in any revenue, what was that? And write it down. Did I make a sale? Or when I was an SDR, did I book a meeting? And having a daily routine to just get focused and say, this is what I want. And knowing that there's a North Star that I'm headed toward, whether it's, something like President's Club, which is, a material thing. But do I really want President's Club? No, I want the recognition. I want to know that I can do it. I want to challenge myself to do something that I'm not sure if I can do. And that's why I picked that goal. But having it and knowing the number that I have to reach, that's important to me.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's, I think, really key, right? Tracking ourselves, paying attention to what that data shows, right? We don't just hit a home run and not know how we got there, so we can't do it again, right? We're paying attention to what it took to find that success. I think that's really important.
When I was an SDR, I was headed into my fourth quarter, and I wasn't feeling motivated. And I sat down and I looked and I realized that I didn't have enough to hit quota that quarter. And I thought, oh shoot, that's not good. So that's when I started doing it. I went and bought a journal and I started writing. I backtracked it. I was how many touches do I need to do? How many people do I need to put into sequence? What are tangible things that I can do, and how can I hold myself accountable to that? and I would write throughout the day. And every morning I would write it down, but at the end of the day, I'd go and do a review. Like, did I reach that goal? Yes or no? And it's not just like the tactical thing, but it's also like the internal thing. Like, who did I want to be that day? Like, how could I be at peace with myself in my own position in my job, and feel like I was doing the thing that I set out to do when I graduated from college, which was like make a difference in someone's life. And sales can definitely make differences in people's lives. You can definitely help somebody. Even though you're selling a software product, you can still change somebody's life by giving them something that helps them be better. So, how can I do that? Well, I need to be the kind of person that I imagine myself to be. And did I meet that goal? A lot of times the answer was no. I did get angry. I did get grouchy. I did get my feelings hurt.
Piggybacking off of that, what motivated you to keep going when there's rejection, when you experience something that you thought was going to happen and it didn't go your way, and how did you keep going, letting it, what's the phrase, water off a duck's back, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to the empathy thing, right? When, like, to be good at sales, you have to be able to put a hat on that is not your own hat and be able to see, through somebody else's glasses, right? You want to see the world the way they do. And I was thinking about this morning when I taught. When I was a drama teacher, I read a lot of drama books because I was like, how do I do this? And I can't remember who said it, but there's an acting theorist who changed the way people act, and he basically said, like, every human emotion you've experienced by the time you're 18. You felt grief, you felt loss, you felt anger, frustration, joy, fear, all of those things. Have you felt them in every situation possible? No. Have you felt them to the most intense or the least intense or the depth that they can be? No, but you'll have felt it. So when you know that, you recognize, how feelings feel, and you look at someone on the other side and you know that you're an interruption to their day, or you know that maybe someone in their family just passed away, or maybe they're about to lose their job, or who knows what's going on. When you do that and you imagine how you're inserting yourself into their lives, it becomes very easy to go, oh, this isn't about me. That was about you. So that, F you, unsubscribe in my email inbox. That has nothing to do with me at all. And maybe they should go work it out with their therapist.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Yeah, it's just keeping those things in perspective, right? Making sure that we're not looking at things from the wrong lens and keeping them in mind. How you said imagine? Remember that keyword from yesterday? Right? Putting ourselves in their shoes is so critical. Well, very good. With that being said, we appreciate you coming down, right, and being a part of our team for a day, right? So thank you very much. Round of applause for Sarah. Now we'll open it up to the floor for questions that you might have for Sarah that she can help answer.
Do you find you're like a very physical learner and also like checking the notes? I guess Allison's a physical, like crossing off the to-do list, and like your actions, like your physical, instead of just everything's like on the computer. Like that's how you also succeed in sales as well. It's like very physical work because of your acting background as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that I do that are, like memorizing something or learning something. I need to do it to learn it. I need it to like go into my body. Crossing things off a list is more about watching. It's like if you're running a race and you're getting closer and closer to the girl in front of you, until you pass her, and then you put your sights on the next person and you run into. That's like the tally. It's like watching myself get closer and closer to the goal. And I think, and it was very, very helpful when you're doing something super repeatable, like prospecting it as an SDR. Kind of changes when you become an account executive. There's like so many more moving parts that there's like balls in the air and things happening over there, and the frying pan's on fire, and but yeah. So if you can set your sights on something and like kind of see the progression of it, that's really helpful for me.
So what things do you do for yourself when you get angry and you're like, I don't want to do this? There's like, sometimes like I'll just go walk. I live in Austin, so I'll just get out of my RV and I'll just walk all the way around the park as fast as I possibly can and come back, and I'm like, okay, I'm refreshed. But not all the time does that work either. So
Yeah, I think one is I vent about it. I vent to my husband, so he doesn't know any of these people, and but he hears all my calls because we lived in like this tiny little like cabin in Berkeley that was like 1.5 rooms, and we sat across the table from each other, and so he's heard he can sell gong probably better than me at this point. So he's heard everything. So, I'll get off a call and I'll be like, did you hear that guy? So I vent about it. I post a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and a lot of times like the thing that I posted, not always, but sometimes the things that I post are direct reflections of however I'm feeling. And having like an artistic way to articulate what I'm feeling or thinking or what I'm seeing, and like craft it and put it together, the act of putting that together, I think that definitely helps. And then I think going on a walk is great. Just exercise and making exercise part of your routine. And also just remembering like, I love my job. I love the work that I do, but I'm not, saving babies from fires. Like it's gonna be fine. No one's gonna die. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't go the way I wanted it to. And I think that goes like back to like the grit or the mindset. All those things are really important. Like, I don't know, I'm one of 7 kids, so I never got my way.
like number 4.
Yeah, I'm number 4.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, all right, fine. Why dwell on it? There's a million more fish in the ocean, so.
So true.
They really are.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Where do you get your competitive streak from, would you say? Because typically when you think of actor or something like that, you don't really think of someone who's competitive, right?
Yeah.
Usually salespeople come from some kind of sports background.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's like if you're go find actors, because actors are they are vicious, right? If you think about going to an audition for a show, I mean, there's so many people who look just like you, who are doing it, and you're being judged. Like there's a lot of enamel that you develop because you get judged for like your creativity and your art and how well you execute on something. And it feels like you're putting something very personal out there when you perform. And they're like, that wasn't very good. I don't like that. Okay, well, thanks. So when you get rejected that often, and in speech and debate that happened all the time too. Speech and debate is incredibly competitive. You go into a room and you perform a piece, whether it's a speech you wrote or something that you're acting, and there's 6 other people in the room, and then the judge gives you a score 1 through 6, 1 you're the best, 6 being the worst, and there are no ties. And you do that like every day, every weekend. And then people tell you why they gave you a 6. You were bad. So I felt like I got really receptive to feedback because of that. And I felt like, of course I want to be competitive. I'm not like the kind of person who wants to beat other people just to beat them. I want to beat other people because I know I could be just as good, if not better. And Sandler Selling also talks about this. Everybody's a 10. Your potential's a 10. You're born a 10. You're always a 10. And I think that you choose to reach your potential every day. And so I guess my competitive nature is, sure, I'm competitive with my siblings. Like, I like to win when I play cards, but I love euchre. I love winning euchre, but I'm not gonna. Sometimes I get dealt a bad hand, and that's okay. But it's like knowing you could play the perfect game, or knowing you could execute the perfect sale. Like, that's very satisfying, and I think that's why I like it. So is that competitive? I don't know. This
I love
is how
that,
I
though.
am.
I choose to reach my potential. I love that. It's very good.
There's a common theme in what you said with that the other speakers have also said about I wanted to compete and I wanted to win, but it's not that I wanted to beat everyone else. I wanted to prove to myself that I could.
Yeah. When I first started out, the way I did that is I would just look to see if I was at the top of the leaderboard. And if I wasn't, I was like, well, I'm going to make more dials after work and just see if I can catch some people, which is a great time to catch people, by the way. Like right after 5, that's like 5 after 5. It's a real thing. You should do it if you're...
You gotta have your message sharp, though. You
Yeah.
wanna be on it.
Yeah, so I'd love to see myself at the top. But then once I got to the top, I was like, well, okay, I did that. And then if people passed me, it didn't matter. But there was something else that was, something else that I was trying to get. So, yeah, I think like it changes. Your reason for wanting to win will change as you go through this process. But it's finding what that is and knowing what it is and then chasing that North Star. You just have to pick something that you want. I think that's the important part.
This also sounds like the speech and debate, like really toughen you up, like your skin. You got a tough hide to be able to handle that rejection and that feedback and not give up. Some people can't make it through that,
Yeah.
And you need that in sales. You have to be able to weather those storms.
Yeah, and I think it just takes practice. You have to practice feeling rejected. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm fine the first time someone emails you F you. That won't happen. Or the weird things people will say on the phone to you. You should know that you're going to have a feeling and it's not going to be a good one. And you should know that and embrace it and be like, and then afterward it's kind of like our brains, when they experience pain, we don't remember what that pain felt like. Oh yeah, that did hurt a lot. I think I remember being curled up on the floor. But you cannot remember pain. And I think it's the same thing with things like rejection. The feeling passes and you're like, was that really that traumatic? Am I still alive? I am. Let's do it again.
Yeah, all the rejections. And I just hearing you talk about one of the things that I love about sales is when you talk with someone on a cold call and they're just no, don't want to talk to you, leave me alone, and then you finally get through, and then you flip them, and then you sell them, and then at the end of the sale they're like, this thing that you brought to me that I didn't even know that I needed has changed my life and has made my life better.
Yeah.
And that's a
great feeling. It's indescribable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winning a cold, getting someone to take a meeting on a cold call is a better feeling than closing a deal, I think.
Yep.
Even if the deal is wow, I'm rich for this month. Even if that happens, I still think that the cold call live,
Oh yeah.
And I always tell myself a no is a yes in disguise. So you'd have to find what the root of why are they saying no? What's the root of that? And if you just ask some questions, a lot of times, oh, I could help you with that.
What's the saying when someone says, "Oh, I'll talk to you, but my answer is no," and they say, "Good. Why good?" "Oh, because a yes is so much better when it starts as a no." Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate your time and coming out for us.
Thanks for having me. You guys are gonna have a killer year.